From the bowels of gentrified Brooklyn, in the heart of Medina, you're listening to the Bean Pie Chronicles podcast, the voice of the African American Muslim community, who we affectionately refer to as the Bean Pie community. Here on the Bean Pie Chronicles, we're committed to bringing you straight talk, critical analysis, and the diversity in thought on American culture and politics, and a glimpse into the everyday lives of the extraordinary men and women that make up the Bean Pie community. So kick off your leather socks and unpin your head wrap. The Bean Pie Chronicles is now on the air.
All right. We are back. Bean Pie Chronicles. We're joined today by the brother Fahim, of course, and Dr. Z once again in the building. Oh, wow. What a week. What a week we've been having.
Like a month.
Of course, again, this is like almost this is an emergency meeting almost. We had to bring in Dr. Z to add some, to talk a little bit about this medical condition. As we know, we're in the coronavirus moment. Right now, there's a lot has changed, Fahim, since the last time we spoke. Last time we spoke, I thought, we mentioned the peanut gallery was saying, hey, maybe black people can't catch coronavirus.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, I remember that.
You remember that one? What a difference a day makes. I guess we know that idea has been dispelled. Right, so we've gone
because we got melanin.
We went from one extreme to another because now we're the target. So the latest headlines all over social media, all over the place, is that the African American community has been disproportionately impacted, disproportionately dying from the coronavirus. I think at this point in time, the last time we spoke, I didn't know anyone that I could think of personally that has succumbed to the virus. That has certainly changed now, So when was that? Like maybe 3 weeks ago that we spoke last time, Fahim?
Yep.
And so I think that today, April 9th, we can all say that we know someone personally that has succumbed to the coronavirus. Black people, brown people, people of all ages, not just an older person thing at this point in time.
Right.
So a lot has changed. The whole idea that this whole thing could have changed, turned on a dime, and now it can. Some people in some corners they're speaking that this is of course, we should have assumed that this was going to disproportionately affect black people because, because of our poor health or our lack of proper health facilities. Some people are saying, hey, that Popeye fried chicken sandwich is coming back to haunt us, or basically we're victims of our own behavior. And we saw videos on social media where people refused to do the social distancing. I think it was in Newark. The kids were telling the cops to get the hell out their face. We out here. So I at that time when I saw that video, I thought the die had been cast, and I was kind of predicting that this thing will eventually hurt black people. And I saw those Facebook and social media posts as a sort of pretext for, why it was acceptable or why it could have been expected, because for black people to have be disproportionately affected by corona, and so we're again, the victims of our own behavior.
I'm still in my observant stage. I'm just trying to, figure it out, put some pieces together. We talked about some theories. that may be contributing to this affinity that this virus seems to be having for African Americans. Talk about, is it necessarily a black thing, or is it a class? Is it a racial thing, or is it a class? Is it a class level thing?
Right.
Affecting primarily, I don't like to say lower class, but poor Americans, who may not have the best of health due to many various reasons that is associated to poverty and living in generations of poverty. Black people having a long history of being not necessarily trusting the medical system here in America for valid, valid reasons.
Right.
So is this a economic thing, or is it a black thing? And knowing that there is a high proportion of African Americans here that are poor. So
right.
If it's focusing on low income people, there's a high proportion of African Americans, black people that fit into that category.
Right.
So it's an overlap, and I'm shifting. I'm feeling like it's more of that of having affinity to poor people as opposed to black people, but being
right.
So yes, I'm really just trying to take it all in and observe it all before I have solid, conclusions. But that's what it's leaning more towards for me.
Right.
What I'm feeling like.
Right. Well, I know for me, I work as a substitute teacher for the Department of Education's regional educational centers, which they set up children first responders. So, there's two shifts. There's a morning shift and the afternoon shift. I work an afternoon shift. But, I ride public transportation to work. So sometimes I ride the train, and sometimes I ride the bus. But what I've been seeing, to both, your point, Idris, and Dr. Z's point, where I live, and also what I'm seeing on the train, is that you're seeing like concentrated levels of poverty, like on a daily basis. And like, we live in it, but like to actually see like the withdrawal of like a lot of middle class and, well-to-do folks, and like on the trains, there's like working class. On public transportation, it's like working class. You know what I'm saying? Like people who have to go to work,
right,
who have to rely on public transportation. You're seeing a lot of homeless people with no place to go. So the train is like their refuge, and though people do observe social distancing on the train, but what I've been seeing, like for people who go home from work on the train, sometimes them trains be crowded, so because I be on the other side. If I want to go like to like Fort Greene to go see my mom, I see like the trains going to like, Brownsville, East New York, going out to Queens. Sometimes the trains be crowded because people, they're coming home from work, from jobs that they have to do.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So, but also there is, the point about the poverty of the mind too, where you got people, like I live in the borderline between like Weeksville and Brownsville. So like there are people who throw parties, you know what I'm saying? There, just the other day, I don't think it was today, if it was today or yesterday, there was some people in Los Angeles, the police had to shut down a party that they were throwing for like a little girl. It was almost like a near riot, you know what I'm saying? And the police for all intents and purposes, like they actually had restraint. It's like,
Mhm.
look, y'all got to move. You know what I'm saying? Y'all can't do this. You know what I'm saying? So it's like it's that part too. You know what I'm saying? Where you have people who don't see this as like a real threat. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And like people of all ages and income brackets are dying, and some people still not taking it seriously. So, I mean, I live in a building where somebody had a party like upstairs like last night. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, like it's the poverty, it's the economic poverty, also that the poverty in terms of like of the mind, like this, poor decision making, if you will.
Poor decision making.
Yeah.
Or just kind of feeling like hopeless.
Yes.
Another way,
Yes.
like damn if I do, damn if I don't. So I'm gonna
Yes.
ride it. I'm gonna
Yeah, I'm
ride
a
it.
ride or die. Exactly.
Kind of
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
I mean, what for me, as I look at the statistics, Fahim, we have a friend, Blandon. He made a couple of points about the misleading or the misuse of data.
Yes.
There are people. We've had several articles that showed that people are being labeled as corona deaths. People that are dying for other circumstances. They're being labeled as deaths due to corona.
Yes.
And so I think that when we see these numbers, that the idea of something being disproportionate. So, I wanted to take a moment. Disproportionate, when I see that automatically brings to my mind that there's some kind of mathematical formula being applied here. We're not just talking about raw numbers. We're not talking about 10 versus 6. What's more? 10 is definitely more than 6. But so when we say disproportionate, we're saying that your 6 is a greater part of a body demographically, because you only make up a smaller percentage. If you only make up 16% of the population, your 6 equates to more percentage-wise than this other group's 10.
yeah.
And so when you have these numbers and you saying disproportionately African American, like, then the blame game starts, right?
Yes.
And that's the part that concerns me, because black people are the acceptable fall guy for a lot of issues. So instead of talking about poverty, when we talk about what are we saying? They said these certain type of businesses can stay open, right? So they say what's the word they're using? Essential.
Yeah,
so we say
business.
What's an essential business? What's an essential employee? What type of businesses are able to function in this type of economy, and what role do people play in this economy? So when they telling people to stay home, I have a couple of friends that they trade. They make lots of money trading. So this whole idea of staying home, that was nothing. They made more money home than you make in the streets. So there is a sense of privilege that is associated with the stay home movement. Who can afford to stay in their house for an undisclosed amount of months, weeks, and still make money. You have people waiting at home waiting for $1,200 or something like that, but that's nothing. And that only thing that's going to do, that's a bailout to your bills, because if you ain't working, your bills are still going, your electricity's still going. So you're going to get $1,200 and turn around and give that right back to Duke Energy or Con Edison or whoever the case may be. So like said, Fahim, the people that have to work are the people that are putting themselves
with their bodies.
Right. So that's there's a lot, from a business standpoint. I'm looking at again, essential. So the barbershops, how many of black businesses fall into the non-essential category?
Yes.
So this is a bloodbath
Yes.
for black businesses, small independent black businesses that don't fall in. You don't have drive-through windows in your local Jamaican food restaurant.
Right. Right.
And so if a lot of the shops in Brooklyn, I don't know about it. I mean, I'm here in North Carolina, but I remember a lot of the restaurants are like weigh your food. So if you
the buffet spots,
spot, if you have to weigh your food, you can't even do the phone call joint.
You can't function like
Right.
that.
You can't function like that. So some of these policies are disproportionately injurious towards the African American community.
Definitely.
So I think that black people, when they talk about this situation with the health, I think that I was kind of disturbed because people, and especially in particular black people, were making the connection between this disproportionate death rate and the poor health habits of black people, as if white people don't eat at Piggly Wiggly or eat Popeyes or
smoke two boxes of cigarettes
and partying and at the bar motorcycle. Like, do all the motorcycle gang guys dying disproportionately? Like, not every white guy is Jack LaLanne.
Right. They had it was in Los Angeles. They had like this outrage because like it was a bunch of white folks, like this open air farmers market.
Right.
It was crowded. You know what I'm saying? But the narrative on that is not the same as, when it comes to us and our health. You know what I'm saying? Like, these people are putting themselves at risk going to an open air farmers market.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But, that is looked at, with kind of kid gloves, if you will.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So, yeah.
I mean, when you talk about New York City, I mean, I wonder if anybody wants to question, Fahim, you could tell us about New York City had a push to get people out of their cars, right? So for the past, I don't know, 5 or 6 years, it's almost become impossible to own a car in New York. Tickets, no parking. So the policies that are at play in New York were driving people to do public transportation. That's almost the reason to live in New York.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I gave up my car last year.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's always been the case.
Yeah.
Try to discourage you from.
That's right. From driving.
Right.
That's right.
So for years now you've set up policies that made it discourage people from having vehicles, and then you have this situation where you are forced to now take public transportation, and now of course the MTA drivers are taking losses. There's a lot of those jobs, those type of jobs, again, essential workers, they're taking losses, and there's a lot of our people on the front line of those jobs. So it's not necessarily like the blame is put on people or to almost make it where it's acceptable, like you brought it on yourself.
Right.
But it's like, no, there's circumstances here, that make what black people do, the lives that black people leaves them exposed to pathogens or something like this. It's not about you partying and hanging out. Sometimes you're just going to work.
That's right.
And just living.
Right. That's right.
Classic, villainizing of of this population.
Right.
Yes, and it underscores really the lack of wealth that we have as a people.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I think I put up a post like a month or two ago, like basketball and rap music has not put a dent in the racial wealth gap, not one bit. You know what I'm saying? So we talk about it, we may theorize and intellectualize about it, but to actually, in this environment of COVID-19 pandemic, to see the levels of poverty like on display in a city like New York, it's astonishing. You know what I'm saying? Because, we live, pretty much. I mean, like the only time like a lot of New Yorkers of all strata of life really get to congregate is really on the subway. You know what I'm saying? But now you see like, those who have the means to just not, work at home, and like the people depend, on public transportation, or like the working poor and the working class. You know what I'm saying? And many of those people happen to be black and brown.
Right.
Right. And even, they talk about the virus, having more detrimental effects on people with chronic illnesses and comorbidity and things like that. That's also something that's, more populous in poor communities. A lot of people have, underlying conditions that they might not even have had diagnosed, and so many people, African American patients, they just kind of just glide on high blood pressure. High blood pressure is just, I got some pressure, I got some sugar, and it's just kind of like, that's how, that's a typical day, So a lot of people, you just don't deal with that if it's not affecting until it does affect you physically, or get to a point where you having a stroke, or a lot of those things are just kind of ignored because there are so many other socioeconomic stresses in your life. Like okay, I might have 190 over 120. That's how I roll. But I got these kids, and I got a bunch of other things that's taking priority over my mind. I'm surviving. You're in survival mode. When you're in survival mode, you don't have the time or energy to think about other things. Eating better foods for yourself. Making it a priority to move your body and to be intentional about working out and keeping fit. Like those things, you have to be free in a way to even elevate to think about those things on a daily basis. If those things are covered, if you don't know what the hell you're going to eat, you got all of these mouths to feed, you going to go buy pack of noodles costs 25 cents.
Come on.
I know I can spread that and get everybody to eat. You might read the ingredients and you can't name any of the things that's in it.
Right.
It's definitely not coming straight from the ground, made in the lab, and it's a whole system that's built against you. From what you eat to what you're thinking about, this whole mindfulness and, meditation. And if I got my bills paid, I can think about, I can meditate. I can think about other things that, it's an elevation of thought. You said, the poverty of the mind, so, so that's another element too. So if it's affecting people that are just kind of baseline, have these comorbidities, whether they know it or not, it's going to affect African American community. Like I was telling you, my friend Zuleika, she's like, I'm in the South Bronx. That's one of the poorest,
in the
in
country, right? And in the country.
She's like, they flying in there. Patients are flying in there, and I don't know, how, if you're not to a point where you're having a hard time breathing, I don't know if that's the best place to go at the hospital anyway. And she said, the waiting room is just a breeding ground of corona. Everybody in there coughing, they're in the waiting room. So my
my brother, my brother, I didn't mean to cut you off, Dr. Z, because
No,
my
you
brother
good.
actually passed away, and he
Mm.
passed away in Lincoln Hospital.
Wow.
Wow.
Not from corona either,
Mm.
so which goes to a post that Idris put up about, the data being kind of like fudged, if you will, you know what I'm saying, where you have people who coming into the hospital treatment for different type of ailments, but it's
Right.
all being lumped under corona. You know what
Right.
I'm saying? Like my brother's his death had to do with like an abscess in his mouth that he didn't take care of,
Mm.
and he wasn't responding to the medication.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So yeah, and it was at Lincoln. That's
Wow.
one of the
That's
worst hospitals. Yeah, one of the worst hospitals you could be at.
yeah, and
Yeah,
that's another thing, the distrust that has been
yeah,
built over centuries. People don't, a lot of people don't come out. You
yeah,
go in there to get treated, and it's just like, not
yeah,
to say they just want to do whatever, but kind of like if they're gonna do whatever, it's rather be on you than on
yeah,
somebody else. That's for sure. And another, dental.
yeah.
That's another thing. African
Yes,
Americans
yes,
can't afford
yes.
dental work. Dental work, like, that's a privilege to be able to get, your teeth taken at dentists are so expensive, you know. So that goes into another realm.
Right.
I mean, it's as I'm listening, I'm like, one of the main conversations around the right before Corona hit. We were talking about politics. That was a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
Bernie
Mm-hmm.
Sanders just
That's
bailed
right.
out, and I see that the insurance companies stock prices jumped because Bernie dropped out. Now, the reason that that's significant is because Bernie obviously promotes universal health care,
Right.
right? And so what we're hearing, or what I'm hearing, is that no, it's not the scapegoat. Let's not scapegoat black people and say it's our behavior that is causing the our reckless behavior, because that's what is people are saying is your reckless
Right. Right.
behavior.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like your high blood pressure is due to your addiction to sugary soda. That will be
Right.
diabetes, and the fried chicken
Right.
and stuff. So fried chicken and grape soda is that's what black people eat all the time. So of course you
Right.
have high blood pressure, but and diabetes. But it sounds like this is more of about class, and so the media is making it a race thing because that's what we are accustomed to, and that sounds good, and that's what we can accept that. Even
Right.
some of our more well-to-do people in the community, that doesn't bring the matter of class to the table, right?
Right.
So when we talk about it's black people's behavior, so of course they shoot each other. They we just so reckless and
Right.
so carefree about and careless about how we live that of course it makes sense that we're dying disproportionately. What's new about that?
Right.
But it sounds like this is like we can't afford to live in this new society. You can't afford to eat correctly. You can't afford to have proper medical treatment. You can't afford to stay home. You can't afford to do proper social distancing.
Yeah,
Come
you
on.
can't afford to be sick.
You can't afford to be
Right.
sick.
Yeah, you can't afford to be sick.
Right.
And so that seems like it's more a culprit than the reckless behavior of black people.
Definitely.
Agreed. Because I mean, just to go back to Dr. Z's point, like our survival mechanisms since the abolition of slavery, like we've been on survival mode, many of us. You know what I'm saying? And there's there's some negative consequences of being on survival mode where we've picked up habits out of survival that have been detrimental to our health, physically, emotionally, mentally, but we had to survive.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because of the cost of being black, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
But now I think this situation is now giving us license to pause a little bit. Like, look, some of these behaviors are we have to look at how we can stem that tide, even with the enormous pressure that we're under as a people. You know what I'm saying? What can I do individually or with my family to change, my eating habits, or to change how I respond to my children because I had a rough day at work. You know what I'm saying? So it underscores a lot, you know what I'm saying, where the narrative is always, as to Idris' excellent point, the narrative always looks at us as, it's blacks in their negative behaviors. They're bringing them own selves down. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So, though there is some, there's some truth in terms of personal responsibility. Nobody's denying accountability, but to underscore your point, Dr. Z, is just about the cost of being poor and black. You know what I'm saying? Where you expertly said you can't afford to be sick. So I think this virus, this pandemic, it's underscoring, like, it's kind of uncovering for a lot of people. Like, look, a lot of people, it's not that they willingly or wantonly want to eat ramen noodles. It's just because that's all they can afford.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So when I went to the supermarket over here on Ralph Avenue, I've seen people like grab up like bags of ramen noodles. You know what I'm saying? Because that's what they can afford, and that's also just the information that they have at their disposal in terms of something affordable, something quick that they can cook, and eat.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So it's not, they may not have the wherewithal or the knowledge to go to Trader Joe's or Whole Foods. You know what I'm saying? Or to think, maybe I should get.
$1 not gonna stretch as long.
Exactly, because organic food costs.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I think, those of us who are armed with some level of information need to kind of be, kind of like boots to ground, if you will, social media wise, of course, because of the social distancing, where we could, maybe do a better job in terms of just informing, people who may not have that information, you know what I'm saying, in terms of, just better, health choices. But it just definitely underscores that just the class issue is so real. So real.
I mean,
yeah.
I mean, as far as that whole thing is concerned, I mean, Z, you was telling me this story about the conversation that the woman was having about the organic food.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I was just at the farmers market not too long ago, and they have you had these two women. One was saying, young woman with her daughter, she said, I don't like these lemons. I don't like these organic lemons. I bought them and they go bad so fast. And then the West Indian lady was there like, yeah, because they're organic. They're real. It's
Right.
Fresh produce. If it don't, most fresh produce is not. It goes bad within a week.
Right.
It's supposed to. That's how food is supposed to do. So she said,
Right.
nah, I'm wasting my money. Then they sit in the refrigerator. I'm gonna get the regular.
Right.
Ain't nothing regular about it.
In her
Exactly.
mind, in her mind, it was just a waste of money to get organic because she's spending more on it, a couple of cents more, and they're going bad too fast.
Right.
So, I mean, I can understand why she would feel that way, but me also knowing that, the genetically modified lemon is not even giving her, the
proper nutrients, right?
In a lemon, it's a catch-22, so it's a matter of, it's that whole thing, and I'm down here in the South, I was, it's this place called, what's that store? What's that? It's a southern chain down here, and they sell, one of their, main dishes is chitlins.
Ooh.
And I had a girl, she was telling me, oh yeah, my husband, he loves the chitlins, that's the specialty. She was telling him like, he was like, he was acting like it was gourmet. Like, this is something you get every now and then. Like, this is a lobster. Or this is like, I'm like, really? But
one of the most foul-smelling things you could ever smell in your life.
Yeah, he teared up chitlins up. Like, what you mean? Chitlins, you know? So it's like, that's a whole nother thing down here. Like,
yeah.
You know, I wanted to, you know, I have a good brother, my brother Teddy, well, two brothers. Well, one brother Teddy, he was, you know, he you know, in this whole COVID atmosphere, there's so many people coming up with so many different reasons why, and you know what you want to call conspiracy theory, tinfoil hats, and you know, he made a great point that, you know, we don't know, you know, as people, we don't have labs. We, you know, if you don't want to blindly trust what CNN has to say about it or Dr. Fauci has to say about it, we don't know exactly what's going on.
Right.
But like, you know, Z, you stated in the last time we spoke, what we do know is our immune system, and we do know, you know, some our bodies are designed in a certain way where it can heal itself, and what we can do is optimize that. So even as far as brother Ted, he shared with me, like, as far as the whole radiation, people talking about this 5G things, he gave me a whole list of foods that take radiation or protect the cells from radiation, you know. And so my point is that the knowledge, the information is the one thing that we can have. Like, as far as like being ignorant is more expensive. Being ignorant at this point is costing people their lives. And so if we're talking about the cost of whole foods and knowing the difference between organic and what we call in regular food, these Franken foods, I mean, there really should be a campaign to lower the prices for whole foods. Like, why can't we subsidize the cost of organic food? Well, you know, if the politicians are trying to win the black vote, maybe something like that would be a good a platform point for a black organization to promote. Like, listen, let's subsidize, because, you know, when the farmers have a problem, we can't sell your soybeans, they go find a way to kick this, pay for the farmers' soybeans. So they find a way to subsidize the farmers when they're suffering. But as far as African American people is concerned, if we're dying disproportionately because we can't afford organic food, maybe, you know, that would be something that we can propose to the politicians, that we subsidize the prices on organic food. Make it where that woman can afford to get the lemons that were organic, or afford to get the milk that's organic, because it's not $6 for a gallon of milk as opposed to $2 in Walmart, you know, with a Frankenstein milk. You know, we have to sometimes come up with some kind of ideas that solutions, you know, because a lot of times it's really about information. You know, it's really about information and people who know and don't know, and you know, it doesn't really cost anything to know some of the things that we. And so the other Ted, my brother, Coach Ted, salute to Coach Ted Gustus. You know, this is a good friend of my family's. You know, he recently did a Facebook Live where he announced that, you know, he himself has been diagnosed with COVID-19, and you know, his beautiful wife Karen and his family, you know, she's a nurse, so he's in good hands. And of course, everybody's praying for Coach Ted. He's a community leader, well known in the Brooklyn area. But, you know, Coach is up in age, but, you know, he's a healthy guy. You know, he takes care of himself. He's for, I would say, for at least a decade now, he's been promoting the concept of one breath. You know, that all of this is and that we see is a result of one breath and one community. We all breathe, and it was just so odd that this whole corona thing impacts the breathing, and the coach has been, as part of his learning more about this one breath concept, has been training himself to breathe deeply, like from deep in your diaphragm, not all up in your chest. And he's saying that, and his doctor told him that because of that breathing, so that's how he's been able to keep some of his strength and his vitality, because this disease is attacking a lot of our seniors. A lot of our elders. It's respiratory, and a lot of our elders in the community. You're losing a lot of jewels because there's elders in the community that are older, and they're aging older, and they have weaknesses, and they're tired, and they're exhausted, and just something. Thank God, like I said, Coach Ted. We pray for him and hope he recovers soon. But that simple idea of breathing deeply from within your diaphragm has saved him, because we know that this disease robs the oxygen out of your air. Your lungs, it attacks your lungs, and your lungs are not able to take the oxygen out of the air that you're breathing. And so Coach Ted is able to use those deep breaths that he's been practicing for years now, and so it's like, sometimes it's like the little things. It's not about it's like knowledge. It's about information. So a lot of times it's about just what can save your life in times like these.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I to add on to your point, Idris, I think that because we've suffered such of an onslaught, what I'm saying, that we our natural default is the negative, what I'm saying, as opposed to taking a proactive approach. So a lot of times our natural knee-jerk reaction, is they're going to shut us down if we do this. If we do this, they're going to come against us, what I'm saying? So we don't even try, and I think that we have to really change, engender a narrative that taking these steps can save your life. What I'm saying? So I second and third what you just said about that. I totally agree, because this situation is definitely unmasking all of that. So basically, it's like, this is, we have to make better decisions. We have to push, those who say they speak for us, push them to really speak on or enact policies on our behalf that speak to our health, and also speak to the economics that impact our health. What I'm saying? So I agree that we have to be more vigilant in being strategic, and and being more positive, because what we've done so far, as we're seeing right now, is literally killing us.
We didn't want to make this a long conversation. This was sort of like an emergency convening. We're working on this project, the Bean Pod Chronicles. We're working to bring the people, I would say, curate the conversation, so that we can bring the people something that's beneficial and needed in the community. I'm trying my best. We're trying our best to bring some good news. As like I spoke to you earlier, Fahim. As Muslims, we by way of principles and traditions, we take solace that Allah is in control of the situation, and it's not in a way to be like what some people might say, spooked out, but we do know, but we regardless of what perception you have of who's the man behind the curtain, like my man Coach Tess talks about the boogeyman, it's not enough to identify that, or it's not even beneficial to worry about what the other player is doing. You have to know,
Right.
and you have to prepare to win regardless of what the circumstances are. And so,
Agreed.
you know, I think we are being intentional about presenting the winning strategies, you know, as any good coach would do. You know, even though if we have to play against Jordan, you still go into the game and saying, okay, he's going to score 50, but make sure nobody else scores, and we're going to win 52-50. You know,
Exactly.
and so that's the approach that, you know, we want to take care of Bean Power Chronicles, and I think that, you know, our people need that, you know, and we want to be a sort of a source of enlightened conversation and thought in these, you know, for some dark times, you know.
Absolutely.
So with that, we're gonna wrap it up today, and you know, again, prayers go out to all those that are suffering at this time. My man, Coach Ted. My condolences to Brother Fahim, man. Thanks for, you know,
brother Troy. You know, may he rest in peace. God be pleased.
I mean, and
we are, you know, I don't tap into that whole boogeyman thing because we are people, and that's not something to just throw under the covers. This is we are in physical bodies, but we are spiritual people, and a part of wellness is mind, body, and spirit. So you gotta get your mind right too, your spirit right too. And this is a time when you're staying home and you know, this is a time to go into yourself, you know, and yeah, open your mind to these conversations, different viewpoints. Don't be scared to think out of the box, and don't be scared to be spiritual, because that is one of our strengths, and
our greatest strength a lot of times.
So we lose that, or we scared of that, or we full of boogeyman. Like that's you know, that's a disrespect to our strength. You know,
right.
Tap into that. You know, and everything does happen for a reason. This is Allah's world and its color, and
that's right.
You stay with your keep sipping your ginger and lemon tea, do your workouts. It all starts with self. You know, you can't change the world before you start to change the world within you. You know,
I mean,
so you know, the spirit world is a major world. This virus, you know, you can barely see it. It's messing everybody up. So
that's right.
Just because you can't see it with these two eyes, that don't mean it's not there. You know?
That's facts.
Allah is the Lord of the seen and unseen.
Yes,
that's
indeed.
Right.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, as a last word, I think that, you know, we need to break the shackles of the industry of fear. You know what I'm saying? Because there's people making money off of this. You know what I'm saying? Even people in our community, you know what I'm saying, that, you know, from the quote unquote, you know, community that, you know, selling fear. So, you know, so you can buy this or subscribe to that, you know what I'm saying, where, you know, you are in an essence of trying to protect yourself, but you're actually putting yourself more in harm's way because you lack faith. You know what I'm saying? And I think this is an important time for the Muslim, for the believer, to really, you know, rely on our faith as a source of, because, you know, I've been down roads where, like, I used to get information back in the days. I would just run with it. I'm like, you know, the world's about to end, you know what I'm saying? But, you know, a simple, you know, making some duas and salat would have nullified a lot of that stuff. You know, like, well, because salat and duas would be like, oh, well, not saying that you don't be vigilant and prepare, but you can't worry about things you cannot control. You know what I'm saying? So you prepare to win. to Idris' point, you know what I'm saying? But we rely on Allah, you know what I'm saying? That is the, you know, the master of the day of judgment. So, and as you said, Dr. Z, Allah's qadr is right and exact, it's real, you know what I'm saying? So, you know, we do our part, you know, take care of our world, you know what I'm saying, and inform the worlds of, you know, other loved ones, people of goodwill. But, you know, and, you know, you pray and do your best. But the industry of fear, like, throw that in the trash can.
It's not serving you.
It's not serving you.
Yeah.
That's right. All right, y'all. All right, again, signing off, Bean Pie Chronicles. Inshallah, till next time.
Peace.
The mighty Zulu Nation rocks the hell. Sure shot. Check it out.
The Bean Pie Chronicles is sponsored by Abu's Bean Pie Company, located on 1184 Fulton Street, Brooklyn, who reminds you, when you're craving that perfect bean pie, choose Abu's.